Every photo he took inside the abandoned school showed the same dead girl's face, and with each visit, the face was closer to the lens. Endo, who explored abandoned buildings as a hobby, visited an old middle school closed 10 years ago in the mountains. The school stood on a hillside, a 30-minute walk from the nearest road. A two-story wooden structure, windows broken, hallways buried in dead leaves. He walked through the building, photographing each room with his smartphone. He shot the classrooms, staff room, and gymnasium in turn. After an hour of shooting, he returned home and reviewed the photos. In one classroom photo, a human face appeared at the edge of the blackboard. He enlarged the dim image. It was unmistakably a woman's face. He had been alone. No woman could have been there. The following week, he returned to the abandoned school. He photographed the same classroom from the same angle. Back home, the face had moved to the center of the blackboard. Closer than before, larger than before. Endo researched the school's history. At the local library, he found an article about the junior high school. 5 years before the school closed, a female student had died in a fall on the school grounds. The face matched the girl's photo in the article. Endo attempted a third visit but a friend stopped him. "Don't go back," the friend said. Endo went anyway. A fourth visit. Same classroom, same angle. He opened the image when he got home. The face was no longer at the blackboard, it was directly in front of the camera. As if pressed against the lens from inside. Endo has not returned to the school since. But every night, one new photo appears in his camera roll. A photo he has no memory of taking. He has not looked at it. Why she appears in that abandoned school, no one knows. The next story is about a voice that carried the sound of children in class from an empty school. Every day at noon, from a school closed for 20 years, came the sound of children answering in unison and chalk striking a blackboard. The moment a door opened, silence, and only the lesson remained, written fresh on the board. Tanaka moved near the abandoned school and heard the rumor from an elderly neighbor. "That school, when noon comes, you can hear children," the old man said. Skeptical, Tanaka walked past the school and heard it for himself. It was 11:55 in the morning. He pressed close to the exterior wall and listened. Children chanting answers together, a teacher's voice. Laughter from a classroom, the noise of what sounded like recess. Tanaka decided to go inside. He squeezed through a gap in the rusted iron fence and entered the building. In the hallway, the sounds were clear, coming from upstairs. He climbed the stairs and tracked the voice to a specific classroom. He put his hand on the door. The moment he opened it, the voices stopped. The classroom was empty. Desks and chairs stood in neat rows. There was writing on the blackboard. Arithmetic, addition practice. The chalk was fresh. Dust had just fallen into the tray. Tanaka stepped inside. A chair showed the impression of someone recently seated. Eraser shavings were scattered across desktops. Evidence of recent use filled every corner of the room. He checked the other classrooms, all the same. Signs of use, lesson content written on every blackboard. Not a person in sight. He returned the next day at the same time. The voices came again. The moment he entered a classroom, silence. Tanaka contacted the local board of education. All records of that school have been incinerated, he was told. No reason was given. Who are the voices, and who writes on the blackboard every day? At noon, the voices still come from the abandoned school. No one has found an answer. The next story is about a man who could not escape an abandoned school's hallway. He walked the hallway of the abandoned school for what felt like 30 minutes, but his record showed 4 hours, and his own footprints overlapped dozens of times on the same stretch of floor. Kikuchi, an architect, had been commissioned to survey the abandoned school for renovation potential. He entered alone on a weekday afternoon. He started his survey on the first floor. He moved down the hallway recording the condition of each classroom. Midway along, he noticed an unusual window. The glass bore a vertical crack shaped like a lightning bolt. He noted it and moved on. A short distance ahead, the same window appeared again. He told himself it must be a different one and kept walking. The same window appeared again. The crack was identical. Kikuchi turned back. He tried to retrace his steps. He arrived in front of the same window. He had walked in the opposite direction and reached the same spot. He drew a mark on the window frame with a marker. He walked forward. The same window appeared ahead, bearing his mark. His mark had gotten there before him. He ran. He tried to reach the end of the hallway. There was no end. The hallway continued without a wall. After 5 minutes of running, 10 minutes, no end. Kikuchi stopped and pressed his hand against the wall. He caught his breath and noticed something. The floor showed multiple overlapping sets of footprints ahead. The same footprints, stacked again and again. He had passed through here many times without knowing. He closed his eyes. This is an abandoned school. The hallway has an end, he told himself. When he opened his eyes, a door stood at the end of the hallway. He opened the door. Daylight poured in. Outside, he turned back. The school looked like an ordinary building. But checking his survey log, he found 4 hours of walking recorded. It had felt like 30 minutes. The next story is about a classroom in the abandoned school that connected to a different era. When he entered the last classroom at the far end of the abandoned school, the view outside the window was not modern mountains, it was a Showa-era farmscape. Inside the teacher's desk was a box of chalk stamped with today's date. Suzuki, a local writer, visited the abandoned school to report on regional history. The school had been closed for 30 years. It had been an elementary school. He moved through the classrooms on the first and second floors. The last classroom at the end of the hall was locked. But it opened when he pushed. The lock was broken. When he entered, the air changed. Warmer than the other rooms, humid. He approached the window. The modern mountains he expected to see through the glass were gone. Instead, rice paddies stretching to the horizon, small farmhouses. A thin line of smoke rose from one of the houses. Suzuki stepped back and looked again. The same view. He tried to open the window. The frame was stuck. He checked a hallway window. It showed the modern view. Only this classroom's windows showed the other landscape. He examined the room. Math was written on the blackboard in old-style Japanese script. A textbook sat on one desk, its cover looked like the 1950s. He opened the teacher's desk drawer. A box of chalk sat inside, new. Today's date was printed on the side of the box. Manufactured today. He drew on the blackboard with the chalk. It worked. A child's voice came from the hallway. He opened the door. The hallway was empty. When he turned back, the writing on the blackboard was gone. The chalk had disappeared from the drawer. The window now showed the modern mountains. What era does the farmscape belong to, and who placed today's chalk in a room sealed for 30 years? No one has an answer. The next story is about a dead student still attending class in the abandoned school. When he entered the classroom, a girl in school uniform sat by the window. She answered when he spoke to her. Records showed she had died as a student at this school, 30 years ago. Harada, a photographer, visited the school to document it before demolition. He came in the late afternoon when the light fell long through the windows. On the second floor, a girl in uniform sat at the last desk by the window. The uniform design matched this school's. "Hello," Harada said. The girl turned. "Hello," she replied. He was startled, but kept talking. "What are you doing here?" "Preparing for tomorrow's class," she said. "But this school is closed," said Harada. The girl tilted her head. "Closed, but today is Monday." Harada realized it was, in fact, Monday. He asked the girl her name. "Yoshida Sakura," she answered. Harada stepped outside and searched his phone for information about the school. He found a record. A student had died here 30 years ago. Her name was Yoshida Sakura. There was a photograph. It was the same face as the girl in the classroom. Harada returned. She was still there. "Sakura-san, how long have you been here?" "Forever. I love this school," she said. "Do you go home when school ends?" She thought for a moment. Where was home again? Harada had nothing to say. The girl turned to look out the window. "I'll be able to go home after school lets out," she said. "When does school let out?" Harada asked. She did not answer. She kept her gaze on the window. As the sun set, her outline grew faint. When it was fully dark, she was gone. The following Monday, Harada returned to the school. The girl was again at her desk by the window, reading her textbook. She has waited 30 years for school to end.